Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. For more than 20 years, I've been working with accounting professionals, and each and every week we have on this show experts to help us basically address those things that you need to be aware of as you're running your business, trying to actually have what I refer to as the premier accounting firm in your area, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. This week we have an excellent guest on. It's an author. It's someone I've been excited to actually have on the show. He also, like me, hosts a podcast, so we're going to have a lot to discuss. It's Reza Hooda. And Reza, he happens to be a chartered accountant and tax advisor. He runs his own accounting firm, trading under the name of Walsey and Company, as well as Capture Accounting, based in Hampshire, UK. For over the years, Reza has actually managed to get his firm to run virtually without him, and now focuses on his time on helping other practice owners to obtain time and financial freedom through his coaching and mentoring programs under the Profitable Accountants community. Now, Reza actually hosts his own podcast, as I mentioned, called The Profitable Accountant. He puts on a weekly video that he posts, as well as does a number of things on LinkedIn, and is one who delivers a number of speaking engagements. He's spoken at various conferences such as AccountX, QuickBooks Connect, Accounting Web Live, and Digital Accountancy Show. And with all of that, he's also published a book, as I mentioned. It's called The Four Pillars: How to Build an Accounting Firm That Gives You More Money, Time, and Freedom. So first of all, Reza, thank you and welcome to being here on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Roger. Excited to be here.
This is going to be a great discussion. So first of all, I always like to start with a little bit of background on someone as to how they got into the accounting profession. Was it something they were pursuing from the get-go, or did they trip into it? So give us a little bit of background before, let's say, college and so forth. What drew you to the profession?
Sure thing. No, absolutely. So I must say it wasn't something that I intended to do. I was one of those that fell into the profession. So if we go to university, I guess the equivalent of your college out there at university, I was studying international business and French. So I got to the point, my final year, the fourth year of university, which is when you typically start to apply for a job, and that kind of starts your career in the workplace, as it were. And so I applied, as you do, to several graduate programs. Some of them included accounting firms, others were general management programs, and some were companies that were headquartered in France. Because I was learning French, I'd spent a year in France, I wanted to continue the language. And you may have heard of Renault, the car company, and Peugeot. So I had two job offers where in my final year, I had a job offer from Renault, the car company, to join their graduate program and work through the ranks, which would have given me the opportunity to continue the language skills that I obtained to work in France and such like. And I had a job offer from PwC, the accounting firm, to pursue the chartered accountancy qualification. It was a tough decision, but I guess you can imagine that I ended up going for PwC. I felt I'm still in study mode, so I don't mind studying for an extra few years, getting a qualification under my belt, which will give me that kind of backdrop, that contingency plan, as it were, should I go and do something crazy in the future. Because my goal was always to set up my own business in something. I just didn't know what at the time. So I thought I'll do the accountancy qualification, do it for 3 years or so, get that under my belt, and then who knows where the world will take me. So that's how I fell into accounting, completely by accident. I joined PwC in their tax department. I applied specifically for tax because I thought it'd be easier to get into, because tax kind of sounded boring. And most people are applying for audit because they make audit sound really sexy. You know, they call it business advisory and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of my colleagues that were in audit, there's about 50 they took in audit and only about 8 in tax. And the novelty soon wore off as they were traipsing around the country working crazy hours, whereas thankfully mine was a 9-to-5 gig. So I kind of fell into the right place. And I spent about 5.5 years with PwC, advising entrepreneurs and private clients on structuring their affairs tax efficiently. And after 5.5 years was when I got the opportunity to buy into a small practice.
So Reza, that's actually quite interesting, because when you get into the tax field and then are given the opportunity to purchase into a firm, I'm curious, why the entrepreneurial drive? Why was that the next step for you? Did you have something that kind of was a dream, a passion of getting into a kind of a leadership, an ownership type opportunity, or how did it present itself?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess that takes me back to my early years, much earlier than university, where I was always up to something. I was always selling something. I wanted to just make money at a young age. I went from selling, the old 3.5-inch computer discs
Yeah,
at school to my friends. I used to sell those. I used to sell chewing gum and things like that. And then at university, I was the one who would sell mobile phones to my classmates. And then I actually set up an eBay account back in 1995. I think I was one of the first to set up an account on eBay. I
I
was
love
selling.
this.
I was maximizing, the arbitrage at the time was phenomenal because people didn't know the value of these things. So I could take a phone from somebody at university who'd sold me their phone because they got something else, and I'd put it on eBay, and I'd get an offer from someone in Mexico who was willing to pay two or three times what I had bought it for. So I was kind of utilizing this arbitrage opportunity at the time where people didn't really know the value of things like mobile phones and laptops and such like. So that was good whilst it lasted, but then quickly the market got saturated, and then there wasn't much money to be made. And then got to a point where it was always something on my mind. I never actually came up with that harebrained idea, but when I qualified as an accountant, and then I did my tax exams, and I was a manager at PwC, and I had a friend there, and we'd always get together at lunchtime and just think, what can we do? And we had a few ideas of setting up our own cafe or something, but never quite got off the ground. And then the opportunity came along. I was visiting my in-laws who lived in Hampshire. So at the time, working at PwC, I was in Birmingham, which is kind of in the Midlands, so middle of the UK, whereas Hampshire is kind of on the south coast, by the sea. So I was visiting my father-in-law, and he ran an accounting firm. And he'd run it for about 25 years. He was getting fed up, and he was telling me that he's been speaking to other firms with a view to selling. So that kind of piqued my interest. And I said, oh, really interesting. And tell me more. And we got talking. And I spoke to my friend the one that we talked about setting up a business together. And I said, why don't we get some funds and buy this practice of my father-in-law, and he's selling up. So he said, yes, let's do it. So we visited, we spent a weekend getting to know kind of the firm, speaking to the staff and getting to know the work, and then agreed with my father-in-law that we were going to buy it, and agreed the deal. But then at the last minute, my friend got cold feet.
Oh, no.
Wasn't ready to move his life down to the south coast, because it was a fair trek from the Midlands, and that's where we were based. And he already had family and children. I didn't have any children at the time. I was married, although we were expecting our first. So for me, it wasn't too much of an issue to move. So I ended up having to take a bigger loan and take the plunge on my own to buy this small practice in Hampshire. But we made the move. It was early 2008. So we agreed the deal in January 2008. I left PwC at the end of January 2008. So it started in February. And then a couple of weeks later, the world goes into financial meltdown, the crisis of 2008. And I'm about to start a journey of running an accountancy business during the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. So people thought I was crazy, but what was even crazier was how I ran that business in the first 5 years, because I made every mistake under the sun.
So first of all, your entrepreneurial background, that interest you had in running a business, I love that, because many of my listeners are in a position where they, like you, have that drive. They have that interest of eventually one day having a firm, and clearly your path was to purchase an existing firm. So that's wonderful. But I also have a number of our listeners that really don't have that entrepreneurial spirit and find themselves one day in a situation where they are running a business, whether it's part-time, full-time, and it evolves into something much grander than they could have ever anticipated. So I always love these stories. Now, as it relates to your doing this in 2008, that timing was, as you've already described, just, I mean, you couldn't do it any differently, because there was that financial crisis that was global. And as it happened, it was one of those things where accounting professionals needed to pivot and change. What were some of the things that you had to adapt, as you recall, that weren't expected, but you had to either decide or implement? And how did that adaptation play out? Was it to your favor? I mean, you spent 5 years kind of adapting. How did that all play out?
Yeah, no, it was pretty tough going. I thought I could. I've trained at PwC, #1 accountancy firm in the world. I can run a small practice. It's easy. But it was far from it. It was nothing like PwC because you are responsible for everything. You're responsible for client acquisition. You're responsible for sales. You're responsible for the team. You're responsible for the systems, the pricing. You're responsible for everything. And at PwC, you just don't get that level of exposure to the business side of things when working for a big firm. You're great with the technicals. You know how to advise and you know how to do the technical stuff. But the business stuff, you don't really get exposed to until you reach much higher levels, sort of partner status, which I wasn't. So it was hard to adjust. And I spent a lot of time just winging it, just trying to figure out what to do, trying different things. And it got to a point where, we weren't, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing, we weren't making much money. I was struggling to get beyond what I was earning at PwC. We had, high staff turnover because I didn't really know how to manage, and I was taking on work by undercutting other accountants, which meant that my staff were overwhelmed. So we had high staff turnover, and I didn't really know how to manage. I was making my staff do timesheets and micromanaging and all the kind of crazy things that, are kind of are a far cry from kind of what I advise now. But you don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
So do things how you think you should do them because that's your experience that you've inherited from wherever else you've worked. And for me, it was in the Big Four. So there was a lot of time that I spent just trying to just stay above water. And it wasn't until I came across Mark Wickersham, who I know you know.
Yeah,
You've had
I know
him on the
Mark.
program in 2014, where I saw an invitation to a webinar on practice growth, promising to solve all my problems. I didn't have anything to lose at the time because things couldn't possibly get any worse. So I jumped on that webinar, and that kind of blew my mind in terms of different ways of doing things, pricing in particular. So he introduced me to the world of pricing, and off the back of that, I joined his mentoring program, and I started to learn about how we should price and started to implement what I was learning, and I got some results. So I implemented more and I got bigger and better results. And then within 24 months, we'd gone from struggling, frustrated, chasing clients of invoices of between 500 to £1,000 to winning a one-off project of £135,000 paid in advance and taking our firm to £1 million revenue with just 7 people. So that was kind of my transformational moment, kind of joining his program, but also through Mark, then being introduced to this world of self-development to realize that actually I'm not the first person that's running an accounting firm. I'm not the first person to learn to do marketing, to do sales. There are people on the planet that have done this so many times and are leading personalities in the space. So I went out to, I read all the books, I consumed the online courses, I listened to the podcast, and through that, I immersed myself into a journey of learning and development, of investing in myself to be a better business owner, all those skills that they don't teach you when you do your accountancy training. And through that, I was then able to then build a practice, which is a genuine business now, which can operate independently of me, because I took the time to invest in things like learning about marketing and selling and leadership and pricing, and then put that into place to get to a point now where my firm can run without me. And I can then go away and do what I love, which is kind of helping the profession to do the same and to shortcut their journey. So it doesn't have to take them 10 years to get to where it took me. They can do it a lot faster.
Exactly. One of the things that I love about your explanation of all of that is, first of all, you got into this situation because you were good at the accounting. You found that with your experience and so forth, you could clearly go into the business, and the hope would be you're going to be successful. But the problem is so many individuals, as they start and work and build their business, the skills of accounting, tax, those aren't what the business is built upon. It's your abilities to acquire clients. It's the ability to market and sell and price. It's the culture that you're building in the organization that allows you to have good relationships with quality employees so that they can be devoted to the business and the clients. All of these things play into the success of the company, building what I refer to as a self-sustaining living entity that is autonomous from the business owner. It's a business that is able to operate basically in absence of the owner, simply because you've built an organization that is functional to deliver quality accounting services. So as you're describing all of it, it just resonates, because individuals like you that I've seen that have actually taken upon themselves that commitment to immerse themselves in the accounting community, listen to things that are related to marketing and selling and pricing and onboarding clients and tech stacks, they start to become a lot more passionate about running their business as it is that they once were as passionate about the accounting services they're providing. So what you're describing here is very, very familiar, and the success that you experienced can congratulations. That is something to be proud of. So well done. Here's my
Thank
next
you.
question. You get to the point where you are being successful. Why the transition into coaching accounting professionals? You alluded to that. What is it about working with accounting professionals that was a draw that really appealed to you?
Absolutely. So again, I have a knack. My wife calls me my wife calls me jammy. I don't know. Do you have the word jammy? You know what jammy means?
No.
Jammy. Okay, jammy is lucky. Yeah, I
Okay.
just seem to luck out, right? So it got to the point where a couple of years of working with Mark, he then invited me because of the results that I was getting. So again, basically, I fell into this. It's not something that I'd intended to do. So Mark then invited me because of the results that I was getting. He said, "Oh, can you do a session to the members to showcase the kind of results that you're getting? Because you're getting awesome results. You're taking what I'm teaching you and you're implementing it, and you're getting these really good results in real life in the trenches of running your accounting firm."
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." I did that, and that went really well, and it got a really good reception from his audience. And then he approached me and said, "Oh, can we continue this, and can we make this a monthly arrangement where kind of I pay you and you can build up your audience on the side as well, and you can teach the other aspects of running a firm in the trenches." He was focused on pricing. I could teach
Yep.
about selling and marketing and leadership and creating teams and systems and all that kind of stuff. So we got together and I started that, and I started to build up my audience at the same time. And after a year or two, it got to the point where my audience has built up, and so did his, and it got to the point where we were kind of competing businesses. So we got together and said, "Look, it's probably time to call it a day." Absolutely amicably, we're still friends.
Yeah.
But that's how I started in terms of being invited by Mark, and then. I just picked up a passion for it. I found that it was something that I really enjoyed doing. I enjoyed taking what I've learned over the years from the best minds on the planet when it comes to topics like pricing, marketing, selling, and leadership, and distilling it through the lens of a practice owner to make it really relevant and practical for firm owners to go away and implement. And because I could relate to them so well, still being a practice owner myself, this is not just theory I'm teaching, it's real practical stuff. So I can say to people, look, this is the stuff that I have done that has worked. I share my templates, my scripts, everything that I'm doing, I share with my members. And similarly, if there's stuff that I've done which hasn't worked, so if I've done an ad campaign somewhere and it hasn't worked, I'll tell them, look, don't go away and do this because I've already done it. I've wasted time and money doing this. Don't do it. So it's great for others to be able to learn from someone who's kind of been there and done it, so they're not wasting time and money doing the wrong things. It's a shortcut.
I love it. It's an example of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You get to that point where at the top you have self-actualization, and now all of a sudden you're willing to give back. You're recognizing that you've achieved that success, and now you can impart those wisdoms to others and actually help them either shortcut that process or accelerate that process. And that's one of the things that I think we're all trying to experience is as an accounting community, helping one another experience success. I come from it with an attitude of abundance. I believe I'm not taking from someone in order to be successful. I truly believe that there's enough out there for all of us to be happy and successful. So with that attitude, that mindset, it allows us to collaborate and work more together, which I feel we're doing right now. So this is a beautiful conversation. Let's talk about then your decision to write a book. A lot of people, they go out there, they get these ideas, and it's one thing to think, okay, I've got some thoughts here, I can write a book, but it's another thing to literally go through the process and write a book. Talk about the decision and the process to actually come up with a written manuscript.
Sure, absolutely. Yes. So I had been running my mentoring program, which for a few years. So I started in 2019, and I started the book at the start of last year, so 2023. So about 3 odd years, just under 3 years, I had been running my mentoring program, and in that process, I had covered many topics multiple times, and I'd created a framework through which to coach accountants. So as well as mentoring, so i.e., me teaching at length, doing deep dive mentoring sessions on topics like how to price your compliance services profitably, how to price one-off projects, how to attract the best talent, retain your high performers. So these are individual kind of teaching topics that I would do every month. But as well as that, I then had a high level coaching program where I would coach firm owners one-to-one. And so in order to do that, I thought I need to come up with some kind of framework that I can take my members through. And that framework, the way I came up with that was to kind of list everything that I had done over the years of getting my firm to run without me? What were the actual actions that I took? And going through that process, I realized that each of those actions could be broadly categorized into four main areas: pricing, people, process, and positioning. So that's how my four-pillar framework was born, and I was teaching that and helping accountants get results, and accountants were getting results, and accountants that I coach were getting incredible results through following that framework and that process. And it got to a point where at the end of 2022, I thought, right, I've got all this material, I've got everything that I'm teaching accountants. I want to put this into a book that I can then give at scale, so I can then the impact of everything that I have learned over the years and shared with accountants can then be distributed at scale. So in December 22, I remember I was on holiday in Barbados, and I thought, right, my January New Year's resolution is to start writing my book in January 2023. So I remember in Barbados, I was on LinkedIn and I was looking for a book coach in particular, because I knew that if I just given it was just on my head to do, I probably wouldn't get it done. But if I got a book coach and I got some accountability and I got someone just to help me structure my thoughts in the right way, then it would get done. So January 2023, I started. The book coach told me what typically takes about 12 months. I said, I'll do it in 6. Did I? No. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But the book coach kept me on track. We had monthly accountability, and I got most of it written by the end of 23, and then we got it edited and reviewed, and it was finally complete by March 23. So I started January 2022. So it took me about 15 months from start to finish to actually get the final thing done.
I love it. I love it. One of the things that I can relate to is the fact that I, like you, wanted to write a book. I've got a few books in mind. And just this year, we published 2 of the books. And the story you shared, the evolution, was very similar to my own. It was finding that publisher, somebody that can work as a coach. And you assume, because the mind, you have everything so clear. It's in your head, it's all making sense. And yet to get it down on paper and to have it flow, it's a totally different experience. And it took me, like you, much longer than I expected. But fortunately, I was able to come out of it with 2 books. And that's quite a sense of relief when you finally get something that's like, okay, I think this makes sense and it's worth going to print. So I love what you've done. And your book is amazing. So let's talk about the 4 pillars. Why not 5? Why not 3? You came to the 4 that you mentioned: pricing, people, process, positioning. Why those 4? Was there a runner-up for a 5th? I mean, what could you tell us about why those 4 are so important?
Yeah, there is a 5th one, and it's I call it the bonus pillar in the book. Yeah. It's the productivity pillar. It kind of underpins. That's more about you as a person and how you get things done. The kind of the techniques that I've gone through, all the stuff that I've learned about how to stay on track, how to stay true to what you say you're going to do, and all the kind of things that we have to mentally actually do in order to actually get stuff done. Otherwise, with all the distractions out there, it's very easy not to actually get anything meaningful done if we're spending all day in our inboxes or at the mercy of the pings and dings on our phone. So, that's really important, the productivity side, and actually staying true to what you say you're going to do. But in terms of the why 4, I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I knew pricing was definitely going to be one of them, and I thought I think I can just go through the process of coming up with a framework. I knew the ideal is, because a lot of people, it's very difficult to remember bullet points that are more than 3 or 4. When you go to 5, then it becomes very hard to recollect what those 5 are. Yes. 3 is ideal. 4, sometimes even when some of my members, they'll say 3 of the four pillars, but they'll miss out the 4. So 4 is kind of the absolute maximum. Having 5, and people will forget. So just to keep it simple, I came up with those, and it kind of hits on, it's like the 4 pillars, right? So you've got a building, if you've got pillars, if you have those solid foundations in place, and you can fortify those foundations, then you can build and scale any size accounting firm that you want. So 4 seem to kind of make sense in terms of the whole pillar analogy.
Now, coincidentally, you've got pillar, and then you've got price, people, process, position. They're all P's. Was that intentional?
Absolutely. Again, to make things easy for people to remember. They had to all begin with letter P, even though the 3rd pillar, the process pillar, could technically have been called systems, because it's about having, pricing, definitely. Positioning is about how you go about and position yourself as the expert. The people is the obvious one, and the other one was systems, but it didn't start with letter P. So I thought, okay, well, process is pretty close. So let's stick that in.
And honestly, I use the words interchangeably. So I quite often speak of processes and systems. So that makes sense. So clearly everyone can read the book, and I don't want to regurgitate on this show the book, but I do want to get, as the author, kind of the director's cut, the behind the scenes of some of these things. So let me just get a few insights as it relates to each of these pillars, and let's go through this. So first of all, pricing. What are some thoughts that you have about it in general as to why pricing is such a pivotal part of the accounting model success?
Absolutely. I mean, the reason why, I mean, pricing takes up probably nearly half of the book. Pricing is a huge one because there are many myths that exist in our profession that are ingrained from us because of the way things have always been done. Predominantly, the prevailing myth, I call it, of the billable hour, charging by the hour, thinking that what we sell is time, but time is not what we sell. So I spend the majority of the first section, and in chapter 1 is called Banishing the Myths Around Pricing, to get rid of all notion from our minds that actually time matters when it doesn't. So we need to get that out of the equation. So pricing is a big one, because we need to eradicate from our minds that what we are selling is time, because it isn't. Clients are not buying time from us. Clients are buying a result from us. They're buying some sort of outcome. They're buying a solution. They're buying peace of mind. That's what they're actually buying from us. They're not buying time from us. And nobody cares about our costs either. So trying to kind of figure out how much time we are spending on jobs and then marking that up is completely futile, because nobody cares about how long we spend on anything. Just like you and I don't care about the costs of anything that we buy, of any supplier that we buy from, we're not concerned about the effort or the time that has gone into creating the said product. We don't walk into Starbucks and stand there before we order thinking about, right, the cost of the coffee beans that goes into making my coffee is 30 cents. The cost of the milk that goes into my coffee is another 20 cents. The attribution of direct labor that's gone into my coffee is 20 cents. The attribution of overhead is 10 cents. An acceptable markup of 20 cents means that I'm only going to pay $1.40 for my latte. You're not doing that. You're looking at the price that's available to you, the choice that you have, and you make a decision as to whether that represents value for you or not. So the only calculation going on in our minds when we buy anything in life is the price I am paying less than the value I am getting? And if it is, I buy, and if not, then I don't. So the only correlation there is when we buy anything is price and value. Nothing to do with cost, nothing to do with time, nothing to do with effort. So that's kind of the big myths that we need to dispel in our profession when it comes to pricing. So I spend a lot of time in terms of talking about that, trying to dispel the myths, and then talking about the alternative as to, okay, fine, well, if we don't sell time, then how on earth do we come up with a price based upon value? Because most accountants, we're analytical, right? We're very analytical and systematic in our thinking. So telling an accountant price based upon value, how do I do that? What is value? I can't touch and feel, I can't calculate value. So it's actually understanding what is value, and then being able to actually come up with a systematic way of pricing it. So the analogy I give in terms of value is I like to see value as an iceberg. So you have the actual value, which is below the surface. That's all the stuff that we're actually going to do for a client, all the tax returns, the accounts, the time we're going to help save them, the tax we're going to help save them, our service, our turnaround times, all the things, all the actual value that we are promising to clients, that's all below the surface. So when a new client comes to see you, the actual value you're going to provide, they cannot see, they cannot touch, they cannot feel. So the only thing above the surface is perceived value. What is the perception of value of your services? So what that means is that, what does your website look like? Are you someone, when I go on your website, I feel that you understand my business better than the other accountant down the road or my existing accountant? What do your social profiles say about you? What is the experience like of booking a call with you? What's my experience of meeting you for the first time when I come to your office? When I come to your office, is it all, is there chaos everywhere, a really messy office, a stench from, the takeaway down the road? Or when I come in, it's a serene environment. I've got a VIP parking space outside for my car. Am I greeted well? Am I given a nice menu to choose my coffee? All these things matter. Look and feel matters because people are making judgments all the time in their experiences with you, in their touch points with you, as to how valuable you are. Their perception of value is being driven up or down based upon all these experiences with you. So we need to take note of that. And that's exactly how the premium designer brands, that's exactly what they do. It's all about the branding. It's all about the perception of value, which is how they get us to spend ridiculous amounts on their products and services because it's of the perception of value they create. So we need to kind of tap into some of that and actually understand, where does value come from the perspective of our clients, and how do we then drive up the perception of value in us and our services to be able to charge a higher price. So that's kind of the high level side.
No, I'm loving this because one of the insights that you're really giving here is the fact that I believe everyone needs to be able to articulate how they came up with the pricing, at least the pricing model or structure that they're using in their business. Because I think just putting a price, a number, a quantity to your time, your services, and so forth isn't enough. What we as accounting professionals need to recognize is the experience that we're bringing to the table, the expertise that we have to offer, and all of those things build up that value that you're speaking to. And more importantly, our ability to create the experience for our customer then allows them to experience something that they can value. And that's more than just the service that we may be providing. So a lot of the things that you're touching on here are very, very important to discuss as a firm as to what it is that we're actually doing for our clients and what it is they're thinking they are paying for. So that's very important. Let's go on to people. People, clearly culture, you're dealing with loyalty, you're dealing with not only the internal elements of what it is that makes up the company, but also the interaction with clients, the client-facing individuals, and that experience that they're bringing to the client base. What do you have as it relates to people that you can share with us?
Yeah. If you don't mind, can we just go to positioning first? Because positioning and pricing are, in my mind, inextricably linked.
Certainly. No, let's follow your order here. Positioning was on my list, but not next. So let's go to positioning first.
Thank you. Yeah. So for me, the pricing and positioning are the external pillars because pricing is reliant on your positioning, how you position yourself, how well you position yourself, how well you position yourself to the outside world in terms of your expertise will directly impact the price that you can get. So for example, if you are just a generalist and you've done nothing to differentiate yourself from the accountant down the road, then why should I pay you a higher price? Whereas if you have actually set out your stall to be the expert, the specialist accountant for a particular sector, for example, for dentists, for chiropractors, for doctors, for marketing agency owners, for business coaches, for content creators, then suddenly now there is a higher perception of value of working with you because I automatically feel that you will understand my business better because you deal with businesses like me. So automatically when we do that, there's a higher perception of value of working with us. So the more we can drive up that positioning, the higher the price that we can get. So that's kind of the main point when it comes to positioning, to actually realize that people want to work with specialists and they feel that specialists are able to add much more value to them than generalists. And clearly specialists can charge a lot more. Think GP, general practitioner, versus brain surgeon, who earns more. It's much easier to find clients when you are the specialist because now you are no longer in that bloody red ocean where accountants are fighting over the same clients. You swim into a serene blue ocean where there's little competition and you create a market of one and you can charge whatever price you like because you have laser focused your efforts into serving a particular sector. But the problem is because when you try and appeal to everyone, you actually appeal to no one. And that's the big mistake that many firm owners make, is that they don't want to turn away work, but actually they are doing themselves a disservice by trying to be all things to all people. You actually will get better quality clients paying you higher fees if you actually hone in and laser focus into one or two particular areas. So positioning is key in order to get a higher price for the services that you offer.
I love this. One of the things that I think is very important, and I have this conversation with all of my clients, is when it comes to positioning is what is it that you want to be perceived as? And your term here of expert is very appropriate. One of the things that I want is for them to feel like what they're providing to their clients is that expert service. It's something that the client could not get elsewhere. And you've correctly brought up the ideas of niching. That's definitely a related topic. Are we able to, in a specific industry, offer a quality service that's unique? And that then brings us to unique selling positioning. What is it that's so special about us that would cause an individual to choose our services over the competition? So that unique selling proposition becomes key. The niche marketing as to how we communicate to our potential customers, that vocabulary we're using, the services around that we're able to offer that are unique to that industry, all of these things start to elevate us in that expertise that we are, and then that correlates into the pricing that we're able to then charge for the services we're offering. So all of this, like you're saying, is clearly integrated and matching. So love how we correlated those. Is now the time to go into people?
Sure thing. Yeah.
Let's go people now.
Right. So the two external pillars of pricing and positioning, and then the internal pillars, as I call them, are process and people. So people is the idea of we need to be able to attract the best talent, retain our high performers, and maximize everyone's potential. But nobody teaches us how to lead teams and how to be great leaders. So I've been on a journey of kind of learning from some of the best minds on the planet when it comes to this subject. People like Simon Sinek and Dan Pink and Jodie Thompson, who wrote the book Work Sucks and How to Fix It. And 5 years ago, we moved to the model of allowing our people to work when, where, and how they wanted to, as long as the work got done. Now, pre-pandemic, this was quite an alien concept. Obviously, post-pandemic, it accelerated people's thinking that, work can get done without seeing bums on seats. But actually, this is the notion that employee motivation is driven by three main things. And Dan Pick talks about this in his book: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So the idea that autonomy, we all want some sort of autonomy, some self-determination in our work and how we conduct ourselves and how we manage the demands of our life through the control we have around managing the demands of our work. But often the case is that we as employers, we want our people to sit in a place 9 to 5 and fill in a timesheet, and we actually suffocate our people and don't get the best out of them because we're not allowing them to flourish, not allowing them to be autonomous. So that's kind of the presenteeism model. Thankfully, the pandemic has helped to shift some of those stereotypes and notions that we had, that if people are in the office sitting at a workplace, they are working, but actually you don't get paid for a chunk of time. You get paid for a chunk of work. So if somebody sits in the office and puts time on a timesheet for 7 hours, does that really mean that they have done 7 hours worth of work? Or does it just mean that they filled 7 hours of work on a timesheet? So we need to start asking the questions and actually get our people to understand that actually we're paying you for results, and giving them the autonomy to be able to manage their work whilst having the accountability. You've got this autonomy, but it comes with accountability. Giving people the freedom, and they will then, your good people, you can then tell your good people from your not so good people, because the people that are working will generate you those results. There's no hiding behind a timesheet. There's no idea of, Bob spends 12 hours here and therefore he is the owner's pet because, he's here, he's clocking all the hours and therefore he must be the best performer in the organization. That idea of presenteeism equals results, it doesn't fly anymore. So, autonomy is the first one. Mastery is the second one. That everyone has a zone of genius. And if people are working in their zone of genius, then they're more likely to feel fulfilled and engaged in the work that they are doing. So we need to make sure that, as Jim Collins said, you get the right people on the bus and the right people in the right seats. So make sure that you've got people working in their zone of genius, that you are tapping into people's natural strengths and gifts and doing something that gives them that satisfaction and that enjoyment in the work that they're doing. And lastly is purpose, that people they're working towards some bigger goals, something bigger than themselves, that they see that the work they are doing, even though it might be bookkeeping, accounts, that it is having a bigger purpose, that they are helping clients to be able to have a better life. In our profession, it's difficult. If you're working in a hospital and saving lives, then there's a bigger purpose there. But everyone needs to have some sort of purpose, and even if it's a small p purpose where your team are helping to make your life easier. As long as they know that and they are recognized for that, and you make sure that you are communicating that, then people feel that they have a purpose in what they are doing. So it all boils down to actually understanding what really drives employee motivation and building a culture of trust, rather than a culture of lots of rules and bureaucracy, where nobody wins really. There's a chap who wrote the book The Gifted Box, called The Gifted Boss, Dale Dawson, and in that his motto is you have few rules but high standards. So, don't worry about, and the Netflix founder talks about this as well in his book, No Rules Rules, where in Netflix, they don't have any rules. They don't have any rules around, they have unlimited holidays, they have no working hours, there's no expense policies. You do what's best in the interest of the company. And when you do that, you really separate the wheat from the chaff, and you really get high performers in, working together for the interests of the organization.
Fascinating. This whole idea of people, they're an asset, as we all know. It's the greatest asset in the business. And if we're investing in them and give them, as you're talking, autonomy, the ability to actually thrive in their business, that's something that they can do very well when they're given that latitude. The way I address it is we actually teach in ours what we call the STAR method. It's creating a culture of accountability. It's really built on, like you're describing, clarity as to what it is that's expected. We have key metrics that every individual and department has identified as to, if you're meeting this, then you're doing what's asked. But beyond that, we're not going to worry about the micromanagement, the hours put in. It's just basically, are you achieving that very expectation? So very similar expectations as it relates to, or as it interacts with people. So let's go to process. You've got systems. Obviously, we're going to talk about what those are made up of. How does that apply in the accounting world?
Yeah, so process, or let's say systems, is big because systems allow us to, or the systems do the heavy lifting so we don't have to. Systems allow us to keep track of workflow, of monitoring jobs, because a lot of what we do is like a factory. So I introduce a model in my book of the factory, the office, and the brains. So our firms are typically made up of three areas. You've got the factory, which is the production line. We bring stuff in like raw materials. We have records that come in. We do something to it. We process them, and then they go out in terms of to the client or to the tax authorities for filing. So we need to have systems in our factory that allow us to see what job is at what stage at any given time, who is responsible for it, and quality control to make sure it comes out consistently to the right standard. So that area of our practice, the factory, needs some systems in order to ensure that everything is coming out in the right way as you'd expect it to. The second is the office. The office is how we communicate with clients, so how we, our invoicing, our engagement letters, our source of truth, our CRM, our sales and marketing systems. We have systems in those areas so that our office functions smoothly. And at the top of that, which most people overlook, but this is really the critical area, which is the brains. Now, the brains of the practice is where you capture and share the intellectual capital of you and your team. Now, this is really powerful because this is how you really generate efficiency, is by capturing and sharing that knowledge that exists in your head and your team's head. So an example of this is process notes. So how you do things to your standard, having process notes for everything that you do within the factory, within the office, and creating some kind of a knowledge hub, which allows you and your team to share that knowledge between each other. So you become a lot more efficient. And that's how firms can generate efficiency, not through looking at timesheets and after the fact. It's through encouragement of how do we better capture and share that knowledge base that sits in our team. We have some team members who've been there for years and been doing it for so long. How do you ensure that that's not lost when team members move on, that you capture everything in a knowledge hub and share that in the most efficient way? And that's how you really generate those efficiencies. And ultimately, that will lead to your profitability.
Oh, you said exactly what I was going to say right there at the end. I truly believe the efficiencies of the firm are what dictate then the profitability of the business. All these other things play a huge role in actually building a successful company, the pricing, the positioning, the people. But at the end of the day, it's the efficiency in which we're all doing the work that determines whether or not we're going to be profitable with this. So spot on with what you just said there. So thank you for that. So here's where I'd like to go. You've got a fifth one. You kind of alluded to it earlier. just give us a little highlight of what that is, because clearly we're running the organization. We can have an impact on this. What is that fifth element, and what do you want to say about it?
Sure. So that's to do with, how we run our own selves, our own lives, the productivity pillar. So actually, figuring out what is important to you. And one of the big game changers for me was to live life by my calendar. So actually, rather than just go into my inbox every day and deal with other people's agendas, it's about living life on my calendar. And how I come up with what goes in my calendar is driven by my values. So values to do with, you can start off with, if you think of concentric circles, there is you at the heart of it. We are at the heart of our concentric circle. And then we've got our family, and then the second, and then you've got, the wider clients and team members, etc. You've got to start in the middle. You've got to allocate time for yourself, because if you are not allocating time to looking after yourself through eating well, through sleeping well, through exercising well, then not going to be any good for your family, your friends, your clients, your team members, or anything like that. So I make sure that before I do anything, I have a morning work. I go to the gym. That morning is sacred for me. Nobody can book a call into my diary until after 1 p.m. So the mornings are my deep work time, where I look after myself. I go to the gym. I do my deep work, my content, things like that. And then I hit the office after 1 p.m. for my coaching calls. And then it's looking at, the values for family. So making sure that there is time set out in the calendar for them. So allocating time slots, because if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't happen. So living life with your, true to your calendar, and allocating, time for meetings, and being really deliberate about how we spend our time, because we often with our money, we're very careful. With our property, we're very careful. We'll put our money in vaults and banks, and we have property, we have insurance, and all the rest of it. But the one thing which we cannot make any more of, which is our time. We let anybody and everybody access to it. Where anybody can come in and disturb us. Anyone can call us at any time of the day. Anyone can fire us off an email, and we're there at the beck and call to answer to them. So, we need to take control of our time and our attention. If we want to achieve the things that we want to achieve and our goals, we need to make sure we're living life by our calendar, and allocate time for working on things. And research has shown that that's how most productive people are so productive, is because they live life by their calendar rather than just attending to other people's agendas, depending on what comes in. So, yeah, that's kind of a really important element of how we operate to get the best out of the finite time that we have.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. The idea of living a purposeful life with intent, using the calendar. I use the blocking methodology, time blocking. And then with regards to the circles, as you illustrated there, what we're trying to do is, first of all, realize that everything that we're involved in hinges on our ability to be present and really being at 100%. And that way we can be there for the family and for our business and for our community. All those things hinge off of our being where we are in our best self. And so taking the time to kind of rejuvenate and refill our needs is a very important thing to, I think, a successful life. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. Here's what I'd like to do. We've really gotten into quite a few good things here. I want to ask a few quick questions as it relates to you then. You've written this book, you've got the thriving business. How has your life changed in a positive way, in the sense of, what are some of the things that you're grateful for that really have come because of all this hard work? What are you grateful for?
Yeah, I'm grateful to be able to spend time now with the people that I love the most. I've got a big family. I have 4 young children, and the fact that I can be around them on my own terms, rather than being kind of chained to the office and working long hours, which was the case when I first started. I'm hugely grateful for that, and be able to do that, because my business I can run from my office here, which is not far from home. Everything I do is through a webcam, like I'm talking to you here now. My coaching and mentoring business, even though I have members from all around the world, from the States to New Zealand to South Africa to the UK, I'm able to do that all from the comfort of my office here, and still have the time to spend with my children, which is what it's all about. We set up in business to predominantly give us that time and financial freedom to do what we want on our own terms with who we want. So I'm incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to do that.
Love it. And that brings me to your children. You spoke of having family. What do you hope your children are learning from you as they're observing you have this lifestyle and this business?
Yeah, so this is quite a term. We often talk about this at home. My wife is very much of the idea that, follow the academic route and get into university and A-levels. Whereas, I have learnt so much in the few years. I was quite a late reader in the sense of not reading at all, but actually reading business books. I never started reading business books until I was in my mid-30s. But I have since gone on a binge, and I have learnt so much from reading business books. It's phenomenal how, books are just an incredible way of grasping what it could have taken somebody an entire lifetime's experience to put together into a book, which you can read in just a matter of a few hours, is mind blowing. So the amount of takeaways you can get from books and implement to get results is phenomenal. So there's so much more that, nowadays, degrees, yeah, all well and good, but I think there is a lot to be said for actually self-development, learning, particularly if you're going to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I've given my son access to YouTube Premium. Now, YouTube Premium is quite expensive, but just getting rid of those ads and being able to, listen to it without the ads, and be able to have the audio without having the screen on as well, I think is a value. I think YouTube is university education and more in itself. So that's what I'm kind of instilling in my children to learn, to actually pick up knowledge and information from wherever, and try things, because the medium that we had is not the only way of getting what you want in life these days.
Very powerful. Yeah. Being a lifetime learner, there's so much to glean from other people's experiences, especially when they take and really condense it down to the highlights, the pillars, as you were describing. One of the things that we all can benefit from is each other's experiences and just really get the best ofs. And I can't agree with you more, only because I think what you're doing is amazing. So let me just go ahead and do this. I'm going to end with a quick summary here of our conversation. And with regards to the summary, I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. Before I begin my summary, I do want to point out that for our listeners, we happen to have some offers here that I'd really encourage you to each take advantage of. You can go to the episode description, and there you can actually find a free copy of Reza's book. It's basically just paying for the shipping and handling. You can go to a page that's in the episode description to get this free offer. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. In addition to that, he is a podcast host. And so he has information there for the show that he actually offers. It's The Profitable Accountant. There's some information there you'd want to actually get. Clearly, you can go listen to it on any of the platforms that you're listening to now. So definitely search for The Profitable Accountant and listen to his show. In addition to this, you can also get a copy of the book In the Black. It's 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. This happens to be a book written to literally help you run your business and do those things that are essential for you to be profitable in what it is you're offering. And then in addition to that, we also have the book I mentioned that I wrote 2 this year. One is called Your Strategic Accountant, and the other is Your Profit and Growth Expert. They're written basically to help you understand what quality services are your clients expecting from you, to really kind of look at what it is you can be doing to really be that expert, as Reza was explaining, and offer quality services with confidence. Now, with all those offers in mind, let me just kind of summarize what it is we've been discussing. Clearly, Reza had an entrepreneurial background. When younger, he was doing things in school, selling the discs, as he was explaining, the candies and so forth, leading up to this opportunity later in life where he was given the chance to purchase a firm. He did so, and in doing that, just timing as it was, put him into a position where he really needed to hustle with the changes that occurred in 2008 on the financial scheme of things worldwide. There was more or less what many people would refer to as a depression, and as we were all impacted by that, he really needed to hustle. And through that, he actually identified some of those things that he needed to do to grow his business. Clearly, it's the marketing, it's the selling, it's the pricing, finding those clients that he needs. And through those experiences, he actually developed a model that was very, very successful, that he was able to take to the accounting community, and has since written a book. This 4 Pillars is a great book for everyone to take the moment to read. And in that, actually identify 4 things that I believe we all should be working on, and recognizing what we can do to, in fact, build, as I refer to it, the premier accounting firm in our area. In addition to those points of interest, he obviously elaborated here towards the end on basically the power of knowledge. taking the time, especially with his children, to help them realize that it's through books that we can really find some golden nuggets in our lives, things that we can be doing to work on our business, work on our lives, become better people in the community, for our families, and so forth. And so I really, that really resonated with me. So Reza, what would you like to leave as a closing thought?
Well, we've covered so much, but it's been an absolute pleasure, Roger, and lots of respect for what you're doing as well to help accounting firm owners be the premier accounting firm in their area. So I love that. I love that strap line. But what I would say is that just condensing everything that we have spoken about is to invest in yourself. Invest in yourself to become a better business owner, so you can do the best for your family, your team members, and ultimately your clients.
Perfect. Well, Reza, it's been great having you here on the show. Let me wrap things up by, first of all, encouraging our listeners, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you actually subscribe, set the notifications so that each and every week you can get notified as to the new shows that come out. We're releasing episodes with the intent of having you hear from the experts what it is you can be doing to work on your business and actually get paid what you're worth. So take the time to do that. In addition, you can go to universalaccounting.com. There in the navigation, find the podcast highlights. We've actually collected a number of the favorites over the past 3 years, and with those highlights, give you a chance to actually do some playlist binge listening. So if you'd like to actually look at topics as it relates to marketing, selling, pricing, we've had Mark on the show. Now we've had Reza and so many others to address these various topics that you need to be aware of as you're running your business. So definitely take the time to go and binge listen to those. In addition, we have our GrowCon event. GrowCon is an annual conference that we put on for owners of accounting businesses. If you're the owner of a bookkeeping, accounting, tax business, this is the place to be. It's here on the stage that we have the experts come on. We actually dive into what it is you need to be doing to work on your business. You get to collaborate and interact with your peers. And then lastly, meet the staff here at Universal Accounting Center so that you can actually meet those individuals that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. Lastly, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is if you'd like more information on these principles or other things that we discuss on the show, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to universalaccountingschool.com, or you can give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Do take care. Have a great day and be safe out there, everyone.